What if I told you that Ferrari discovered something inside Lewis Hamilton's car in Japan that not only explains the lack of power, but could completely change the fate of his season? Ferrari arrived at the Japanese Grand Prix with a completely different feeling than the one they would end up experiencing hours later. The team was driven by positive signs, with a car that seemed to have taken a step forward and with Lewis Hamilton increasingly adapted to the Maranello structure, something that had already begun to be noticed in previous races where he even managed to be competitive in qualifying and show glimpses of his best version. Everything pointed to Suzuka being the definitive turning point, the moment where Ferrari confirmed that it was ready to fight head-to-head with the best. But what happened on the track completely broke that narrative. From the first laps of the race, Hamilton began to feel that something was not right. It wasn't a normal feeling of lack of rhythm or tire degradation, it was something deeper, more difficult to explain even for a driver with his experience. The car simply did not respond on the straights, it did not have that acceleration that a modern Formula One should have, and the most worrying thing, there was no way to compensate for it. While other drivers could activate their potential at key moments, he was left completely exposed, losing positions with no real ability to defend himself. The situation became even more evident when he began to be surpassed by direct rivals without opposition. We are not talking about piloting errors or failed strategic decisions, we are talking about a clear difference in power. Seeing his own team and competitors like George Russell and Lando Norris pass him with ease was confirmation that something was terribly wrong. Hamilton couldn't fight, and that in Formula One is one of the clearest signs that the problem is at the heart of the car. Crossing the finish line in a frustrating 6th position, the atmosphere inside Ferrari was no longer one of routine analysis, it was one of real concern. Hamilton's first statements were direct, blunt, making it clear that he had suffered a loss of power throughout the race. That type of message, coming from a driver who has driven multiple generations of hybrid cars, carries enormous weight within the team. It wasn't an opinion, it was a warning. What seemed like a one-time problem began to escalate quickly in the engineers' minds. Because in today's Formula One, especially with the 2026 regulations, power no longer depends solely on the combustion engine, but on an extremely delicate balance between the V6 turbo and the electrical system. Any failure in that synchronization not only reduces performance, it completely destroys it at key moments. And everything indicated that Ferrari was facing exactly that type of failure. While the rest of the paddock moved on, an urgent internal investigation began in the Ferrari garage. They weren't looking for an improvement, they were looking for an explanation. Because what happened in Suzuka did not fit with the expected data, it did not coincide with the simulations, and the most disturbing thing, it had no obvious cause at first glance. It was the kind of problem that forces a team to question everything. Thus, what began as a disappointing race became the beginning of a technical crisis. Ferrari had not only lost performance, it had lost understanding of its own car. And in Formula One, that is the worst possible scenario. Ferrari's internal investigation after Suzuka soon revealed that the problem was much more complex than they had initially imagined. What seemed like a simple loss of power began to take shape as a structural failure in one of the car's most critical systems: energy management. And this is where everything becomes really worrying, because we are not talking about an isolated piece, but about the very heart of performance in modern Formula One. When engineers analyzed telemetry from Lewis Hamilton's SF26, they found a completely anomalous pattern. The car was recovering energy when braking as it should, but it was not returning it correctly on the straights. That is, the system was working, but it was not synchronized. This difference is key because in the current regulations, where electric power has an almost equal weight to the combustion engine, any imbalance in energy delivery directly translates into a massive loss of performance. The specific problem was identified as a delay in energy release, a phenomenon that completely disrupts the car's natural flow of power. Instead of deploying all the accumulated energy at moments of maximum acceleration, the SF26 did it late, poorly, or simply did not do it at the right time. This generated a feeling of emptiness in the car, just when the driver needed thrust. And that perfectly explains what Hamilton described: a car that didn't respond when it should. But the most serious thing was not only the delay, but its cumulative consequences. Every lap at Suzuka amplified the problem. On a circuit with multiple hard braking zones followed by long accelerations, such as the Degner corners or the final chicane, correct management of the hybrid system is absolutely essential. If the recovery and deployment cycle is not perfectly calibrated, the car enters a loop of inefficiency that is very difficult to escape from during the race. And that's exactly what happened to Ferrari. As the analysis progressed, an even greater concern began to arise within the team. This was not a typical failure. It wasn't a problem they could correct by simply adjusting parameters over the weekend. Everything pointed to a profound desynchronization between the systems that manage energy, which meant reviewing everything from the software to the control architecture of the car. In other words, Ferrari didn't just have a problem. It had a problem that it didn't fully understand. And this is where one of the most feared concepts in current Formula One appears: super clipping. Although it is not mentioned openly in every report, indications are that the SF26 was entering a phase where electrical power was exhausted prematurely, forcing the car to rely solely on the combustion engine in the most critical parts of the circuit. This leaves the driver completely vulnerable to rivals that can deploy all their hybrid power efficiently. This discovery completely changed Ferrari's approach. It was no longer about improving the car, but about understanding what was wrong at its core. Because if the hybrid system is not correctly synchronized, any other aerodynamic, mechanical, or strategic improvement automatically loses value. It's like trying to optimize a car that can't use its full potential. Inside Maranello, the feeling quickly went from frustration to unease. Because this type of failure not only compromises a race, it compromises the development direction of the car. And when a team begins to doubt its own technical understanding, it enters extremely dangerous territory. Ferrari now not only has to solve the problem, it has to make sure that it is not something deeper, something that has been hidden from the beginning and that has only now, in real racing conditions, come to light. The discovery that Ferrari made after the Japanese Grand Prix did not stop at technical analysis. It completely changed the internal state of the team. Because when they understood the magnitude of the problem, they also understood something much more disturbing. They did not have an immediate solution. And in Formula One, when you can't react quickly, time becomes your worst enemy. Within Maranello, the meetings stopped being routine and became authentic emergency sessions. Each technical area began to review its own systems, looking for the exact origin of the failure. Was it an error in the programming of the energy deployment? A problem in the interaction between battery and control unit? Or something even deeper in the design of the SF26? These questions did not have clear answers, and that is precisely what worries a team of this level the most. Ferrari's biggest fear is not just repeating a result like Suzuka. It is that this problem is integrated into the car's DNA. Because if the failure comes from the core of the concept, any attempt at a solution could compromise other areas of performance. That is, fixing one problem could generate another. And that's the kind of scenario that can derail an entire season. In addition, there is a factor that aggravates the situation even more. The calendar does not stop. Formula One does not wait for teams to resolve their internal crises. And Ferrari knows that every race without a clear solution is a lost opportunity against its rivals. Teams like McLaren or Mercedes are not only scoring points, they are consolidating their developments while Ferrari enters a phase of doubts. In this context, the figure of Lewis Hamilton takes on an even more important role. Because not only is he the affected driver, he is also one of the most experienced voices within the team. Your feedback is now not simply valuable, it is essential to rebuilding confidence in the car. But even with all his experience, there are limits. A driver can adapt, he can compensate, but he cannot solve a structural failure from the wheel. Ferrari is thus at a critical point in its season. It is not a crisis visible in the headlines due to an abandonment or a strategic error. It is something quieter but much more dangerous. A crisis of technical understanding. And in a sport where every thousandth counts, not understanding your own car is the biggest possible disadvantage. What happened in Japan is no longer just an anecdote. It is a warning. A sign that Ferrari could be facing a much bigger problem than it initially seemed. And the big question now is not whether they can fix it, but how long it will take them to do so and how much it will cost along the way. Because if something has become clear after Suzuka, it is that Ferrari not only lost power, it lost certainties. Ferrari left Japan with something much more worrying than a bad result. It left with doubts. Doubts about his car, about its development, and, above all, about his ability to understand what is really happening inside SF26. Because what seemed like a simple lack of power ended up revealing a much deeper problem, one that goes directly to the core of performance in modern Formula One. These types of situations are what mark seasons. Not because of what happens in a race, but because of what they unleash afterwards. Ferrari now not only has to regain performance, it has to rebuild its technical confidence. And that's something that can't be achieved with a quick update or an improvised solution. It requires time, precision, and above all, certainty. Just what they have lost. Meanwhile, the championship continues to move forward, and each weekend will be a test not only of speed, but of understanding. Because if Ferrari can decipher what really happened at Suzuka, This moment could become a turning point. But if he doesn't, it could be the start of a fall much deeper than anyone in Maranello wants to admit. And this is where the big question remains. Is Ferrari about to solve a specific failure? Or has it just discovered a problem that could haunt them throughout the season? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.